Morning everyone, Anthony Violi from AV Weather Forecast for another video blog. Just looking at the global temperatures for the next 6 months, something I like to do for my seasonal outlooks. I was having a look this morning at some of the latest runs from CFS, which is the climate forecasting system, and I noticed a few peculiar things, so I'm going to run you through them and just to give you an idea of what to expect in the next 6 months. This is starting from January. It's going to go through till July, and I'll run you through the monthly forecast. Now, these forecasts here are the last 30-day average, so basically the model runs for the last 30 days have come out with an output where we're looking at warmer than normal temperatures for Australia. Obviously that's because of the warm water that's here. As you can see, that warm spot there. But if you go through the top menu here, you can sort of narrow it down to the last 14 days, last 7 days, and the last 3 days, and then of course the most recent run. Now, January is going to be a warm month, no doubt about that, because of the warm waters to the northwest of Australia, and the fact that the summer pattern hasn't quite come on yet. But we're looking at warmer than normal December and January at the moment, like I said. But we should start to see humidity increase now because the pattern's going to change and allow all this warmth to sort of come down here. So we're going to get the warmth, but we're also going to get the humidity, which in turn is going to lead to an increase in rainfall. Now, we go through the months in February. They're looking here at sort of easing off of the heat, probably because we're going to see a fair bit of rainfall. But if you run through last 21 days, last 14 days, you can see it progressively getting cooler. So the last 7-day runs have started to ease off the heat completely. And then if you look at this, the last 3 days, look at this down here, we've got significant cold building already in the middle of summer in Antarctica. And you can see the cold over the country, which indicates a lot of rainfall here. So I'm expecting a very wet February for most of Australia. You can see the sea surface temperatures here are starting to cool down by this cold area here as well. So this is something to look forward to. And if you go to the most recent run, it's eased off a little bit now and it's gone back with the heat. So even though you can't take a lot out of these climate models because they change so much, you can develop a trend. So from the last 30 days, 21, 14, 7, and it's getting colder and colder. So that's February. If you look at March, again, last 30 days, it's looking at average temperatures, a little bit warmth there. Of course, the monsoon will be in by then and should be providing lots of heat and rain. So we run through again 14 days, last 7 days progressively colder, last 3 days very cold. And again, have a look at that. Australia is much cooler than normal, and so is Antarctica. So there's starting to become a connection. The model here is seeing something that's going on. Look at the northern hemisphere. It is the middle of summer in the northern hemisphere, so you expect that to be very warm, which it is. But look at this cold water coming down again, starting up here in the Bering Sea and feeding down into the Pacific. And again, you've got the cooler than normal water here in the cool neutral La Nina type fashion in the middle of the Pacific. So the model must be seeing something that's indicating to it that we're going to have a cooling coming on. Now this is going to change probably, because if you look at the most recent run, again it goes back to showing a bit of heat here and warmer than normal down here. So every day these model runs will change, but the trend is for cooling. If you look from what it was 30 days ago and you run it through the days to the last few runs, it consistently gets colder for the southern hemisphere and consistently gets warmer for the northern hemisphere. So if we go through to April, again, we're looking at pretty average temperatures across most of the globe, a little bit of warming in the northern hemisphere to be expected. But then as we run through, again, the last 14 days and last 7 days, look at that, the trend becomes pretty obvious. And now I think this is actually being overdone here. I think CFS is really going over the top with this one. I cannot see this sort of thing happening where Australia is going to be quite cold. It's believable if this was to happen down here in Antarctica. I could believe that this probably would happen, and this would happen in South America and Africa, but I think it's really going to an extreme now because the northern hemisphere is very warm and the southern hemisphere is very cold. You don't normally see a separation like that where the northern hemisphere is completely warm and the southern hemisphere is completely cold. I think that's really going over the top. However, it's something to be watched as we continue to go through the next couple of months, and we'll keep an eye on it. And there's the latest run, of course, which is again a blend of more logical. That's more logically what you'd expect, where you see cold in Alaska, cooling of the Arctic, cooling of Antarctica, warmth over the continents, because that's what you'd normally see in the summer months. Summer months are usually warm. Lots of warming in Europe and Asia, and a bit of warmth over Greenland. The Atlantic's going to be warm, so the American continent's going to be warm as well. So that's basically more likely what you're likely to see. However, this trend can't be ignored. I mean, like I said, I still think it's overdone, but we'll keep an eye on it. So at this point we get to May, and again, very mixed out, average weather, nothing extraordinary, a bit of a cool neutral happening in the Pacific, so your temperatures aren't going to be high, they're not going to be low, they're going to be fairly average, nothing really extraordinary to see. We run through the last 30 days, and again, progressively, I mean, this is ridiculous now, this is just going right over the top, so I just disregard that. That's just a model run that's just gone crazy. You're not going to see, I mean, you're looking at freezing conditions in the southern hemisphere and boiling conditions in the northern hemisphere. I think that's just way over the top, so we just disregard that. And again, the latest run has come back to some sort of normality, where you're looking at a little bit warmer than average in the northern hemisphere and pretty much average in the southern hemisphere. So that's looking till May. We can go one more month to June, because after that really it's getting too far out to be used as any sort of real guide. And again, start of June, the last 30 days indicates normal temperatures, a little bit of warmth in the Pacific and not too much happening, a little bit of warmth up here through Asia, and we'll run through 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, and the most recent run. So again, it's slowly getting colder. And then if you look at this, actually there's a big difference here in the Pacific. Look at that, 21 days. And you go to 14 days, not much happening, but look at 7 days, it's all of a sudden seeing this cold water here. And look at that, big temperature drop there in the last 3-day run, which again could be the fact that the models are overdoing it a little bit, so we'll just keep an eye on that. July, which will be the middle of winter here in Australia, average temperatures, and it's looking like pretty much, if we go through, again, it's going to start cooling down, and it's looking like very cool weather there for winter for Australia. And again, southern hemisphere cool, northern hemisphere quite warm. This is not out of the realms of possibility here to see this warmth in the northern hemisphere. In neutral years you tend to have a bit of warmth over the continents in the northern hemisphere in the winter. They're generally warmer than normal. We just went through one and we'll probably go through one again, depending on what happens next year. But again, very cold. We know we just had record Antarctic sea ice extent this last winter that came, and again the trend is that it's going to happen again. Very cold sort of pattern developing here. I'm not too sure if that's going to translate too much in July for Australia, because most of it seems to be over the top end, which would indicate a La Nina type pattern developing. However, there's nothing really showing a La Nina type pattern developing at this stage. So what does it all mean for a seasonal forecast? It probably means that we're definitely going to have warmth in the next couple of months. As far as, if we go back to January, we'll just have a quick look at that again. Yeah, I think that's pretty well on the money here, the latest run. Lots of warmth here. There's warm sea surface temperatures, very warm sea surface temperatures here at the moment, and that's going to feed obviously the heat into the country, but it's also going to feed the humidity. That's what's the important part. My outlook is for above average rainfall to develop in the next month or so and really go gangbusters for the first 3 or 4 months next year because of that warmth. You can't have the heat filter down over the country without the humidity coming as well. So that's why I'm expecting that we're going to have quite a wet first 4 months of the year next year. So that's about it. That's just the current update of what I think is going on with the climate, and I'll keep you updated on more weather stuff in the future.